That's my secret, cat. I'm always angry.
Alright. I ran out of patience. On the roost!
Hey everyone, Captain, big fan of Spider-Man.
Avengers! Assemble.
Hello, Peter.
Hello and welcome back to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, an MCU fan podcast. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and I am recording this from Salt Lake City, Utah, as I'm on vacation. But I watched Ms. Marvel yesterday and had to record my podcast here, make sure everybody is able to get this weekend and not have a delay on the podcast. But we're going to be talking about Ms. Marvel Episode 3, which was called Destined, directed by Mira Menon, teleplay by Freddy Syborn and A.C. Bradley and Matthew Chauncey. Story by Freddy Syborn, and that premiered June 22nd of 2022. Ahead of Aamir's wedding, Kamala may face grave consequences due to a crucial decision she makes. So before we get into the plot by plot of it, just off the top of my head here, my initial thoughts on this episode is, again, shock to no one, I'm really digging the show. Absolutely. Really digging the way that this show is being done. And I think one thing that I really like about it is just the feel of it. I've mentioned that in the last two, so we're not going to go into that too much, I don't think. But one thing that really has kind of stood out to me, too, is just how much this is paced like a normal TV show. How much more this feels like a TV show than any of the other Marvel series we got, which have kind of been movies broken into chunks, right? This is like really the first Marvel series, maybe other than What If, right? But if we're talking live action, the first Marvel series where this feels like we are talking like about a real show. And what I mean by that is an episodic show. And we're getting little pieces of information in each episode, and it's great. And, you know, this show has had a tough time with having to premiere during Obi-Wan. Then this third episode is on Obi-Wan's finale. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness hits on Disney Plus, right? This and Thor: Love and Thunder is going to be coming out next week, right? About a week or so, maybe two. When is it? Early July, right? So 2 weeks. This show has kind of been premiering right in the middle of all of these things. Disney Plus things, theatrical things. It's really getting the short end of the stick here. Now, originally, I think it was supposed to premiere earlier, but had to be kind of pushed back. So part of that is the reason I don't think Disney and Marvel are just like, just throw it there and we'll deal with it. It kind of unfortunately got pushed this way. I really think this probably would have been before Moon Knight if everything had gone smooth. And it may not even be that the show wasn't ready, but the fact that the Marvels had to have its date pushed due to Black Panther 2 having to take a hiatus for a little bit due to the injury to Letitia Wright. So that's kind of where I land on it and why I think it is doing what it is doing with having just to overcome so much adversity with the schedule. But it's one of the highest reviewed shows so far on Disney Plus. I think the highest. And I can see why. This thing has just been a beautiful, beautiful show. And again, visually, the acting has been phenomenal as well. I can really relate to Kamala. I can relate to a lot of the characters. And I think we're going to start going into it a little bit more now. So if you haven't watched the show yet, now would be time to turn back. because we're going to start getting into the spoilers. So Najma explains that her and Kamran, so this is Kamran's mother, right, Najma, are part of a group of enhanced beings known as clandestines, which is a Marvel thing. We'll talk about that probably later on. Or Jinn, which is, typically it is known as a mythical type thing in history, and they've kind of evolved into genies. That's how we kind of know them a little bit more. That's like the anglicized version of Jinn is genie, which is mostly like some sort of spirit or demon, according to Wikipedia. But these are creatures that have been around in pre-Islamic Arabian religious systems and in Islamic mythology and theology. So, that is something that has been something that they mentioned, I think, in episode 1 that Kamala used to be scared of as a kid, right? And now here we are. She's finding out that they're real. So that is something that has been weighs on her in this episode a lot. When she first tells Bruno about this, she says, finding out my nightmare is real and I'm actually part of it, right? Because what we find out too is not just Najma and Kamran are part of these clandestines or Jinn who were exiled from another dimension, but that Aisha, her great-grandmother, was also part of them. We open up with this flashback that is Najma explaining this to Kamala, and we see a blue hand with the bangle on it, and there were supposed to be 2 bangles. They only found 1. That is why she only has 1 right now, and why I guess Aisha, or somehow this got sent to her from her grandmother, who was Sana, right? Aisha's daughter. And now she has that, and it's what they kind of mention this is that it's bringing out the power that's in her from being part of these clandestines. And Najma happens to say, hey, the bangle somehow might be able to help us get us back to the dimension we come from. So she's kind of buttering up Kamala, as we'll learn, right? She's not a good person. We'll get there at the end of the episode. But she's not a good person, but she's trying to get Kamala to do her bidding for her without having to explain too much. What Bruno is going to figure out while they're looking into the bangle and looking into these genies or jinn that have come from another dimension, as it's in some of these paperworks that Bruno is looking at, that Kamala's father is actually going to read for him and translate for him from Urdu, thinking it's for homework. But what that does, right, is Bruno says, hey, whatever we might do here to fix this could potentially be very dangerous. And Kamala wanted to help them, but once she finds out it's dangerous, she kind of becomes hesitant. She says, I'm not going to do it if we can't find a way to do it safely. And, Najma is going to have Kamran text her and kind of figure out, where her head's at. She responds to him, hey, it could be dangerous. I need some more time. And Kamran, surprisingly here, I guess is what I'm surprised at from the show. I thought he would be undercover agent, right? But he does seem to really care for Kamala. He does seem to care to not hurt people. And he gets put in a really bad spot here where his mother is really pushing for him to do these things, to try to lean on Kamala. Najma understands that Kamala likes Kamran. So she's using that and using her son to try to get in close with Kamala and having Kamala just do the thing to get him there. And I think Kamran knows that. He knows what his mother's doing, but he kind of is against it at this point. I don't know what happens later, right, when we get into 4, 5, 6 episode territory where he goes from there, because he's going to leave in handcuffs with the Department of Damage Control, and if Kamala doesn't try to help him, maybe he gets a little flipped. I don't know. I'm still weary about Kamran right now. But I loved all this. You know, the blue hand could be a Kree hand, which could really tie this in with more. This could tie it in even more with the Kree relationship of the Marvels. Like Carol, Monica. And I think that's where they're kind of going here. So it could still be that they are part Inhuman, but known as something else at this time. You know, Najma explains they've been known as many things. Clandestines, Jinn, are two of the things she mentions. But I don't know if they're going that way. They might just not even want to say Inhuman. They were luckily able to get that word into Multiverse of Madness with Black Bolt. But I do think part of that is because of, if we want to talk about it, break it down right now, Kevin Feige, right, canceled that Inhumans movie as soon as he gained power at Marvel. And what I mean by that is originally he was under Ike Perlmutter, if people don't remember this. Ike Perlmutter was the one who would ban or make decisions based off what toys would sell, what comics sell, stuff like that. Very petty guy that when X-Men was with Fox, after a certain amount of time, he said, we're going to stop doing the X-Men comics. We're going to stop doing toys of the X-Men. We're going to give them nothing because the toy rights were actually with Fox, I believe. So he gave them nothing. For a while there, some of the X-Men wouldn't even appear in some of these video games that would come out later. If you look at, I think it's, Lego Marvel Superheroes 2? Barely any no Fantastic Four, no X-Men, none of that stuff is in that game, while Lego Marvel Superheroes 1 did have those characters. So Ike was getting increasingly anti-mutants because he couldn't profit off of them. He was getting anti-Fantastic Four at a point where, again, some of these comics just stopped having runs for a bit. It wasn't until 2018, after I think a 2 or 3 year layoff, that Fantastic Four got a comic line again. Now, why does this relate to Ms. Marvel? Well, because Ike Perlmutter then said, why don't we just make them all Inhumans, right? Like, if we were going to come out with more characters that are going to take over for mutants, we're going to call them Inhumans. Then you get the whole event in Jonathan Hickman's Infinity arc, where the Terrigen Mist goes all over New York, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is going to interpret this as well. Like Season 3 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So without the Terrigen Mist, it's going to be with like the fish oil with the Terrigen in it, right? So what that does is it made Kamala an Inhuman. She was created as one of these new Inhumans, as some people call them new humans, because they're new Inhumans. And when they created that, she's really like the only really most popular Inhuman. When you talk about the new humans, the regular Inhumans originally were, the royal family, Black Bolt, Medusa, his whole family line, Crystal. All those are kind of like the original Lockjaw, the dog. All these people were originally the regular royal family Inhumans. And then we get into more of these other Inhumans that you learn, right, from the 2013 onward. And Ms. Marvel is probably the most popular of those. So originally there was a movie scheduled for this. Kevin Feige eventually took power because Ike Perlmutter was also trying to get them to not make a Black Panther. Because he said people won't show up for black superheroes, which he was very wrong on, as we'll see with Black Panther's box office. He was hesitant about what Captain Marvel. He was hesitant about that. He didn't think female-led superhero movies would be good enough. Which is why when people get angry about the fact that Black Widow hadn't had a movie until so long, it really was just like 5 years after Kevin Feige was able to take control of that a Black Widow movie was out. And Captain Marvel was 3 years after he took control. He took control around 2015. And what happened then is the movie gets scrapped for Inhumans, and Ike Perlmutter, who is still ahead of the TV division and Marvel overall, as Disney put Feige and stuck him underneath the film stuff with Marvel Studios, where they report to the Disney studio heads. And Perlmutter then says, all right, we're going to make an Inhumans TV show, and it bombed. It did terrible. And all this stuff goes away because Disney's going to buy Fox, and that eventually allows us to have X-Men and Fantastic Four again. Comics. That's the thing, too. You know, people can say, well, you know, you don't want to celebrate this merger because people lose jobs and because comic book characters are coming back in. But really, with how long Ike Perlmutter was in charge, if we didn't have this buyer, you know, where they bought Fox, we probably don't get that many X-Men or Fantastic Four comics for a long, long time. That's how petty this guy was. So, Feige seems reluctant to do Inhumans. And really, I can understand why. I think the royal family should be touched on. I don't think we need all of the new Inhumans. I don't think being Inhuman actually makes a difference to Kamala's arc. If she doesn't become an Inhuman, if she's not revealed to be Inhuman at all, it doesn't change anything about this show, which is her coming of age, learning about her past, and ultimately learning the power within her that the bangle just harnesses. So it's not really like the Green Lantern ring like some people want to say. But anyway, that's my off-topic. Well, I guess it's on topic because we're talking Inhumans. We're talking Kamala Khan. We're talking all these people. But I just wanted to bring that up and explain why that was a thing, right? So, when Kamran says to his mother that she's hesitant, she's like, you know what? This is it. We're going to go down there. We are going to force her to do this. And it's also Aamir's wedding date. And we get this great festive wedding with the dancing and there's some great dance numbers. I mean, it looked fantastic. It looked great. And we got to see this whole wedding and, you know, kind of more characterization for Aamir and his wife, Taisha. And it was nice to see that perspective on here, a totally different perspective than what we are used to seeing in our media. And that was very interesting, very great to be able to witness that. And then Kamran warns Kamala. He also calls Bruno Brian again, which is really going to hurt Bruno's feelings here. And Bruno also does tell her about getting into California school, because that was something we had learned, I think, in episode 2, where his guidance counselor is saying, hey, like, you've made it or whatever, and you have to go for the internship. And he's debating on if he should do it or not. He sees the jealousy he has as Kamala is in love with Kamran, and he knows he probably can't compete with that. So he says, I might have to go. And I don't think he actually will. I think this will be resolved by the end of the show. But I don't think that he actually will go to California. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we can look back at this in 3 weeks and say, oh, I got that one wrong. But I think eventually Kamala will see that Bruno has always been there for her. So Kamran is going to warn her. She's going to pull the fire alarm. And then all of these clandestines, right, or jinn, that are part of Najma's group, is going to come in here and start fighting. Some of them have like this, mace type thing, right? One has like a belt whip thing. I don't know. Seemed kind of cool. And we get just a great fight scene here. I do wonder why the people in the kitchen didn't leave when the fire alarm went off. They wait until these people start whipping up on Kamala that they're like, okay, never mind. Like the lady says, like, nope. She walks out. Everybody starts walking with her. But this was just a cool tension-filled scene. Tons of moments where she's playing defense most of the time here. Just nope, putting up a shield of the crystallized thing from the bangle, blocking, trying to stop herself from fighting. But eventually, things are going to get pushed to shove here. She's going to use that big fist. She's going to punch, knock them all down. She's eventually going to be able to get far enough away to let Bruno and Nakia go. Bruno gets injured. Nakia sees that it's actually her. There was this whole exchange earlier when Nakia's telling her that she made the board for the mosque. And that she is... That they were coming in to remember. I can't believe I skipped this part, but the Department of Damage Control is coming in, trying to get some knowledge on who Nightlight is, right? And it kind of makes Nakia kind of like not a big fan of Nightlight. That they're coming after, that she's putting so much pressure on the community for acting out and being different, I guess. Kamala has this nice exchange with, I'm trying to remember his name, but he is like the leader of the mosque. And what can I do to win them over? People in my community. To show that I'm not bad. To show that I can help out this community. Help people. And he seems very pro Nightlight. He says, well, I'm sure the kid last night wouldn't think that was a bad thing for her to save him. So she had that great exchange with him. It kind of, I think, really emboldened her to know that I am doing the right thing. All I can do is do good stuff, and maybe eventually I can win some people over. Well, this is where she's doing that good, but it still kind of backfires against her. Somebody saw her pull the fire alarm. She goes back in there. She has to face off against all of these clandestines. And then Department of Damage Control comes in, is able to save the day here. This is one of the times where we're like, okay, it's good to see them right now. They're going to capture all of them, including Kamran, and that's where it might be an issue. But Kamala and Bruno are able to escape here. Kamala is able to escape and go back home, where she has a conflict with her mother and her family here, thinking that she ruined Aamir's wedding. All of this stuff will eventually be resolved, I think. I think eventually her parents are going to find out the powers. As what we're going to learn here at the end, Sana, her grandmother, contacts her saying she saw the vision of the train as well, because right before the Department of Damage Control arrives, Najma grabbed her and showed her the vision of a train. And on the train said the word Karachi. And she is insisting, Sana is, that Kamala and her mother need to visit her in Karachi. And I'm assuming that's where we're going into episode 4. So, where do I think it can go from here? Well, I think we're going to go to Karachi and learn a little bit more about the past. I don't know what to think about with the train or what that's going to mean. We had the train story that was part of Aisha's background, right? She had disappeared. And with that, we don't know what that means. I think we'll learn more about how she disappeared or where she actually is now. I mean, she's probably dead, I guess, with her age. But I don't know. They age slower, right? That's what we learn from Najma. Because she even says, oh, you guys all look good for your age, right? If you were around in the 40s. That opening scene is in British India in the 40s, finding that bangle. And they look the same. So it's conceivable that her grandmother or great-grandmother did escape, is still around, or there's going to be some sort of background that we're going to be able to learn here in Karachi and figure out where this show goes forth. We got 3 episodes left. We're halfway. I feel like this show has been nailing it each week. The show is scheduled to end July 13th. So we've got June 29th, July 6th, July 13th. And from there, we'll see exactly where the story wraps up. But I just want to cover real quick. Clan Destined is a superpowered progeny of Adam of Destined and Alalith, a jinn. In recent years, they become reluctant superheroes due to their youngest family members, the twins Rory and Pandora. But I don't think any of these members are people that we are introduced to in this show. So I don't think that this is anything other than them just being in name only. May 1994 was their first appearance in the comics. But they are people that have been born and lived for a long time. But Ilalith is an ancient jinn and mother of Clan Destined. And Adam of Destined, born Adam of Ravenscroft, was made immortal and invulnerable by his lover Ilalith, a female jinn. So you could have some sort of stuff mixed in there with it, I guess, right? But it'll be interesting to see where we go with it here. One of my predictions would be that at some point we will have Bruno and Kamala coming together, maybe in a relationship, or maybe him just getting the feelings out. I don't really know. It could go either way, I guess. But it's been a lot of fun so far watching this show. I wish I could have more thoughts or more speculation, but I feel like right now, with it being just a regularly structured show and with how the show has been progressing, there isn't much to theorize on. We know we're probably going to Karachi next week. And we know that at some point they're going to figure out what happened to Aisha, her grandmother, her great-grandmother. And I want to get to know more about Sana, and I'm assuming we'll get that next week when they go to Karachi. If it's next week, maybe that's episode 5, and episode 4 is them kind of talking about it. But I think with that lead-in at the end of you and your mom need to get over here and visit me, shows that that's probably episode 4. And we know that her mom doesn't have a great relationship with Sana because she, somebody mentions like, oh, well, your mom's not going to be able to make it. She said, well, why would she make it to Aamir's when she couldn't even make it to mine? So there's some history of friction there. And I do wonder how much Kamala's mother knows about the power of the bangle, their relationship to the jinn, and all of that information. Or if that is all hidden from her from Sana, by Sana as well. The way she tells Kamala it's all junk and doesn't want her messing with the bangle makes me think she does know. So we'll see, I guess. Well, these have been nice short recaps. I'm giving you about 30 minutes a week right now on these. But I'm going to go ahead and get back to vacation and maybe rewatch this episode at some point while I'm sitting here in the hotel room. But if you do want to give us a follow, where you can do that at for us. So if you want to give us a follow, you can reach us on Twitter at TO Infinity Saga. Facebook.com/Infinity Saga Beyond. Or you can email us, marvelplusrecaps@gmail.com. I also do have a Instagram right now as well, which I thought I had it written down on here, but I do not anymore. But it is known as TO Infinity Saga and Beyond. To Infinity Saga and Beyond. Just dropping the in the title of our show. So thanks everyone for listening. I hope you all have a great weekend, and we'll catch you next week when we talk episode 4 of Miss Marvel.